Hi guys, Matt Koch, Speed Cafe F1 editor here, looking ahead to this weekend's Formula One Italian Grand Prix from Monza, one of the most iconic circuits in the world. One that's been on the calendar since 1950 on all but one occasion. Formula One's race there, that one year being 1980. And we go there this weekend with the championship hanging on a little bit of a knife edge. Lando Norris won the Dutch Grand Prix, a really impressive race win from McLaren, a really seismic race win as well, because Zandvoort, the Dutch Grand Prix, has been a stranglehold for Red Bull in previous years. McLaren went there and absolutely demolished the competition. Lando Norris winning by 20 seconds, 22.9 seconds, I think, off the top of my head, over Max Verstappen. It really highlighted the swing that we've seen in the championship in recent races. Red Bull does still lead the championship by 30 points, but McLaren has all the momentum heading into Monza, and with 9 races left, including this weekend, there's plenty of time for the English squad to round up Red Bull Racing and pip it for the Constructors' Championship. And as things currently stand, you would suggest that it's probably going to happen and that McLaren will win this year's Constructors' Championship. Lots to play out, but the odds certainly do seem to be shortening in McLaren's favour. So too for Lando Norris in the Drivers' Championship. Now, he's second in the standings behind Max Verstappen. There's 70 points between the two. But again, that championship battle is heating up. And while at the Hungarian Grand Prix, there were suggestions that team orders should have been put in play there when Oscar Piastri won from Lando Norris in a 1-2 for McLaren. At that point, it was too early. Now, you'd have to suggest that Oscar's a little bit further back. He's another 36 points behind Lando Norris in the Drivers' Championship. He's a little bit too far back to be a realistic chance of the Drivers' Championship. Let's now focus our efforts on Lando Norris. Let's get McLaren across the line in both competitions. So I think now is the point at which Oscar Piastri should start working for Lando Norris where it makes sense. It doesn't make sense if they're running 4th and 5th to revert positions, but if they're running 1-2, give the points advantage to Lando Norris, because not only does Lando then get the big points, but it also creates a buffer to Max Verstappen, because if it's McLaren 1-2, the best Max Verstappen could hope for is 3rd. So it just accentuates those points differences. So that's the big story this weekend, really the championship and the way that is developing, and developing very, very quickly. Sergio Perez was 6th in the Dutch Grand Prix. It was a better performance, but still not good enough. He was the worst of the top 3 performing teams. It's just interesting that the top 3 teams in Zandvoort were Red Bull, McLaren and Ferrari. Mercedes were a little bit off the pace, and I sort of expect that to be the case again this weekend. Mercedes has really excelled where conditions have been a little bit cooler. This weekend is meant to be over 30 degrees in Italy for the Italian Grand Prix, so I would expect that to probably just put them on the back foot a little bit. So McLaren and Red Bull will be the favourites. Look for Ferrari rather, because Ferrari always do excel when it comes to Monza in the Italian Grand Prix. Elsewhere, Williams has a new driver in Franco Colapinto. They've finally parted ways with Logan Sargent. That's been on the cards for quite some time. However, Franco Colapinto's got the nod because they couldn't get deals with either Liam Lawson or Mick Schumacher across the line. Liam Lawson, Red Bull were insisting on a clawback clause, which basically meant that if they wanted or needed him at any point, they could just pull him back. That would have left Williams in the lurch. Mick Schumacher, he was also mentioned, but he's got commitments with the World Endurance Championship. He's in Austin racing this weekend, and he'll be in Japan in a couple of weekends when Formula One's meant to be in Azerbaijan. So that also doesn't work. So Franco Colapinto, Formula 2 driver, part of the Williams Academy, he steps up into the drive alongside Alex Albon. Huge pressure on him, expected to basically deliver at a level higher than what Logan Sargent was. You've got to feel sorry for Sargent. A lot of his failings this year have been a result of the way he's been managed, and that goes back to the Australian Grand Prix, where he was hauled out of the car after Alex Albon crashed his own Williams and then was dropped into the car that Sargent had been driving up to that point. And from there on, the season's just really unraveled. And speaking of unraveling, there's still lots to play out as we do head into sort of the final stanza of 2024. We've got the Italian Grand Prix and then Azerbaijan and Singapore to follow in quick succession, then another little bit more of a break. So plenty more to play out. when we get to Singapore, it will be important for Sergio Perez to have put in a couple more good results. So he really does need to perform in Monza this weekend. There's been resurfacing happen around the Italian venue. The first chicane is part of that. I'm told the apex curbs haven't moved, but the circuit has been widened on the outside of the corners. So look out for that. Hopefully there's a little bit more racing room. We don't want to see a repeat of what we saw between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton in 2021. But always a good race in Monza, one of the most famous circuits, as I said at the top, in the world. And always does produce great racing, not just for the on-track stuff, but for the atmosphere that the Tifosi creates, one of the most passionate fan bases in world motorsport.